We'll try to. And I see Corey right now. Corey, can you hear us?
Oh, yeah.
Good deal. Well, we're going to go right into questions for you, Corey. And our first question is going to come from Mark Garrow. Go ahead with your question, Mark.
Hey, Corey, appreciate your time. The last time we talked, it was preseason and you had some pretty high expectations. How do you feel the season has played out? And are you at par, or are you a plus or minus 4, do you feel?
I think on paper we are probably minus, but I think that internally we're better off. So we had a couple mechanical failures early. We had an engine break. We had a couple, knick-knack stuff happen. We had a really good run at Martinsville. Should probably had a top 10 result there, and we got caught up on pit road. So we've had 4 DNFs. So if we clean those up, then we're, 24th, 5th in points, which I feel like really overachieving for what, we set out to do. But when we're sitting there 30th, I think, or so, whatever it is in points, with a lot of points left on the table, I'm still pretty bullish on what we're capable of doing. It was a little bit more of a transition than I expected from the Ford Mustangs we ran last year. Sparks and I had a pretty good feel for them with those Stewart Haas cars, transferring those over, or the setups over to these Ganassi Camaros. The aero balance was a little bit different. They had a little more front downforce, so we had to adjust, and we probably threw away 3 or 4 weeks on the intermediate tracks to get that balance figured out. But I think we got a pretty good handle on what these cars need to make some speed. And I was pretty happy with how we ran at Darlington. We were probably a 20th to 23rd place car and run 22nd. And I think for us, that's checking all the boxes and incrementally getting better and figuring out the things we can do to get better throughout the year.
Okay. Our next question will come from Jeff Magliochetti. Go with the question, Jeff.
Thanks, Matt. Corey, thank you for joining us today. You've had the experience this year of being in a bit of an unfamiliar position where you're the most experienced guy, the most experienced driver in there with Justin Haley in tow. So what's it like serving in a bit of a mentor role to Justin, and what can you say about the relationship you guys have developed over at Spire?
Yeah, Jeff, I've actually grown to kind of like it. It's this weird like phase in your career when you realize you're not the young guy anymore. You're always the young guy looking up to Jimmy Johnson or all these guys you grew up idolizing, and now you look in the mirror and you're 29, 30 years old with a couple years of Cup experience on your belt, and now you got a 22-year-old kid behind you, and you figure like you're offering advice and you're almost mirroring stuff that people have told you along the way. So I've enjoyed that. We don't get a whole lot of time. Obviously his focus is primarily on that Xfinity car, trying to go for a championship there at College Racing. But it's fun to interact and just get to see his perspective on things, because his path to how he got where he is a little bit different than mine. So to see and compare different racing experiences together, and how even he can give me some pointers sometimes too, from whether it be the Xfinity race the day before, what the tires do, how much track how much grip the track gives up, or whatever the case may be. So I lean on him just as much as he probably leans on me for advice, because he's getting more seat time every weekend than I am on the racetrack.
And we're coming up on a bit of an interesting stretch in the schedule where 5 of the next 11 points races are going to be road courses. What have you guys at Spire done to start to prepare for the road courses, especially because we missed out on the traditional tracks like Watkins Glen and Sonoma last year?
I do not like the fact that you reminded me there's 5 out of the next 11 races of road courses. I just haven't, man. I haven't had a lot of experience on road courses growing up for whatever reason. I didn't do much Xfinity series. I only did it on ovals. I only have less than 30 starts, and there were none on road courses. So my first ever road course experience was in a Cup car at Watkins Glen. But I ran a car down at Coda earlier this year in December, just to see the place and figure out the breaking points and stuff like that, and feel like I'll be able to pick up fairly quick when we go to Austin. But I've never been to Road America. I've only got 1 or 2 races there at Sonoma. So that's certainly my weak point, but I've been working hard on it. I got a shifter car, go for a Motorplex probably once a week or so, to just get that sort of reprogramming of your brain for road course racing. It's completely different than what I grew up doing. So I got to put a little more weight into it since NASCAR is obviously going the way of a couple more road courses in the schedule, talking about street courses in the future. So there's no excuse to not work hard at it. And, I know my guys here at Spire Motorsports are going to do their best to give me a good car. So I want to be the weak link in the seat.
Appreciate your time. Good luck this weekend.
Thank you.
Our next question will come from Bob Pockris. Go ahead with the question, Bob.
Yeah, Corey, I want to say that you did do some racing at COTA in the off season, if I remember right.
Yep.
So what about that track? But was there anything about that track that you feel is uniquely different to the road courses that you've run previously?
There's not a whole lot of elevation change, besides that big uphill climbing to turn one. And I do think with our cars, I ran a BMW down there, it was a WRL race. There was about 8 different classes, anything from a full-blown GT car all the way down to a rental car at the Austin Airport Dodge Charger if you wanted to go out there. So like the speed discrepancy was big. So I was right there in the middle. And my point being is if I got off turn one and there was a GT car behind me and he didn't get around me through that right-hand sweeper up until the S's, then he was stuck behind me because the course is so slow and those S's tighten up so much. So I think that if you're somebody who might not be as fast as somebody in front of you, if you can just maintain your position on a restart through turn 1 and 2 and get to the S's, then you can maintain that position all the way down into 11, into that hairpin. And then I feel like it'll single out and you can probably maintain for a long time. It'll be hard. There's only probably 3 passing zones, I think, into 1, into 11, into 12, those hard braking zones. Beyond that, it's going to be a little bit of root and gouging, a lot of sliding around because that track's pretty abrasive.
I mean, there are some spots where, how many cars can you fit in some of those wider area turns?
Yeah, I mean, it's a wide track, but on the flip side, there's also there's only one fast groove. So you might be able to fit four cars, but the preferred lane's going to go. So, I'm not sure how it's going to play out. I don't think it'll be – I like the fact that it's not quite as fast as Watkins Glen, so you're not depending on aero so much up through the S's, because Watkins Glen's an intermediate road course at this point in time with how much grip it's got and, how much downforce your car makes. So I don't think it's going to be quite to that level. It's going to be a little bit more than a little bit faster than Sonoma, kind of be a good mix of both. I think it should be a good race. I'm just excited to go to a new market down there in Austin and see how the fans support it.
Thank you.
Our next question is going to come from Anton Horeskev. Go ahead with the question, Anton.
Thanks, Matt. Good morning, Corey. So last weekend in Darlington, your throwback was dedicated to Alan Kulwicki. You even wore his fire suit before the race. What was going through your head while you were driving that car with that paint scheme and all of that stuff?
Man, it was this weird moment when I gave the backstory on how I got the fire suit on my podcast, Stacking Pennies, this week. Should be out here later today. But Robbie Benton, we met for coffee Sunday morning, and his dad had it. Him and Bobby Benton and Alan were buddies when he first opened this shop, and he was helping him out with tools. So Alan gave him a fire suit, and it was in a safe for almost 3 decades. And I had it out, and I was almost in awe of man, Alan Kulwicki wore this fire suit, and I'm about to try to fit my big ass into this thing. Luckily, I kind of fit. It was tight, but I wanted to take care of that thing because I think that thing belongs in a shadow box down in the Hall of Fame, if you ask me. So to be able to put a fire suit on that somebody put their hard work and sweat into, there's no telling where he wore that thing and how many races he won in it. So it was really a special moment for me to be able to wear that fire suit and also drive the car that was painted up just like it. So I was glad the fans enjoyed it because it was we certainly embraced it here at Spire Motorsports. I think it paid off.
Thank you. Wishing you all the best for this weekend.
Appreciate it.
Our next question will come from Chase Wilhelm. Go ahead with your question, Chase.
Hey, Corey, thanks for joining us. When we go to super speedway races, we talk about how smaller teams can get some above average finishes. With this stretch of road courses coming up, I know you said you gotta work on your road course skills a little bit. But do you feel like if you can mind your P's and Q's and stay on the racetrack and minimize the mistakes, that a smaller team that you drive for like yourself, you guys can squeak out some above average finishes here in the next few weeks?
I would like to think so. You know, you could point to Jeremy Clements winning that Road America race a couple years ago, beating that Matt Tiff. But man, Xfinity racing is so much different than Cup racing. You know, like there might be 10 guys that know what they're doing on a Saturday afternoon. There's 32, 35 guys on a Sunday that know what they're doing. So the odds of, you know, 15 guys missing a boat or having the wrong strategy is very slim. You know, that's why those guys are making a lot of money, whether it be on the pit road side or behind the wheels. So, you know, it's hard, just as hard to sneak a finish at a speedway race as it is a road course race or a short track race, just because everybody's a professional. That's why it's, you know, the big time. It's not the minor leagues. And I don't think you're going to see a back marker or not. I mean, I wouldn't even consider us back markers by no means, but you're not going to see a deep in the field guy sneak one out at a road course, unless there's just some absolutely crazy pit strategy and he can go long or whatever the case may be. But I just don't think you're going to see it because the simulation miles are too good. I mean, like they've got engineers at the track as well as a whole compound at the shop running through the infinite possibilities of strategy outcomes. So when you're up against that sort of stuff, it's hard to sneak a good finish any given week, let alone the road courses.
And one more for you. You talked about racing the shifter carts up at GoPro, and Jimmy Johnson really does that a lot, especially preparing for, I'm sure, his IndyCar road course races. How much does that actually help going up there and doing that?
I know it doesn't hurt. The only thing that hurts is your ribs if you hit a curb, because those things are just a person mover. So I think the sensation of speed, braking technique are all somewhat similar, but you have to have a lot of finesse wrestling a 3,600 pound car around the track instead of just, you know, elbows up, getting after it in a shifter cart. So, you know, I've learned a lot of things. I picked up a lot of speed, just forcing myself to learn different ways, different apexes into the corner just at a go-kart track. So, you know, I think it's not so much applying go-karts to cup cars as much as it is building or making your brain be flexible to constantly get better and make adjustments to try to find speed. And I think that side of it is what correlates the most.
Appreciate it, Corey. Thank you.
Thanks, Jay.
Our next question is going to come from Daryl Kinsey Jr. Go ahead with the question, Daryl.
Corey, thank you for joining us. We're a week off from the announcement about the next gen car. How are some of the cost-cutting measures for that vehicle going to help smaller teams like yours aspire?
You know, I think short term, it's probably going to be about a wash or a push what we got now, because right now we can lean on Ganassi, we can lean on Hendrick to get some of their hand-me-down stuff, you know, instead of cutting a 7-figure check to get all new parts in the door. I think the long-term game of the trickle-down effect behind a team like Hendrick or Ganassi or Penske or Gibbs or Roush, like all those big guys, not spending the money in R&D to develop a new left side truck arm, oil tank, braking, just like the infinite amount of things they can work on to find just morsels of speed is what's going to trickle down and save everybody money. But at the end of the day, you know, the big teams are always going to spend a little bit more, have a little more people, spend a little more time in the wind tunnel, stuff like that. So hopefully we can pick up where we like to. I don't think it's going to be even by no means like some people might think. But you know, I think that you're not going to be worried about getting beat because you have a different left front upper control arm or your suspension's a little bit different than the next guy. You obviously have the same parts, but having the fit and finish and the, you know, you got to stack the pennies. You know, I'm probably beating that drum a little bit too hard, but that's where the details are when you go and you find 5 counts of downforce, 5 counts of drag off of it. That sort of stuff is free speed that the more people you have, the more CFD models you have, the further you can space yourself from the competition. And I think for the first half of the year, it's the bigger teams are going to be further separated from the smaller teams than they are right now, just because we have notes we can lean on. You know, so I'm probably a little bit nervous, you know, because we're doing all we can at Spire Motorsports to get our cars currently on the racetrack with all the notes and all the decades worth of setups we have. And then we throw a whole new mix into it where there's all the other teams, the bigger teams, obviously the ones that are competing for championships, have a working group internally already figuring that next gen car out, figuring the areas they can work on with the bodies and suspension, stuff like that, to obviously get themselves a competitive advantage. So if we're running as lean as we are now just to get to the racetrack, we have no time to look into the future and work on that next gen car until after the year's over. So that's what I'm a little bit worried about, just to hit the ground running. But I'm also confident on the other side of the coin in Ryan Sparks' ability as an engineer, as a racer, to figure that car out quick. And everybody underneath of him here at Spire Motorsports will figure it out. But we're just going to have to get lean and mean and get after it. Don't make excuses.
Thank you.
Our next question is going to come from Marty Sikala. Go ahead with your question, Marty.
Thanks, Matt. Corey, thanks for the time, man. Hope you're well. Going back to your convo with Anton on the throwback, I'm curious how long that throwback scheme was thought of, because I know Spire moved into Kowicki's shop back in January when you posted that photo. So how long was this throwback scheme thought of for?
I mean, there was actually a clip. I was on somebody's podcast in January. It was probably 2 weeks after I signed up, and we were just kicking around throwback ideas because that was kind of the topic. And I threw out the Xerox car because it's obviously one of the most iconic schemes that Alan drove. And being the fact that they are owned by Valvoline, we have a somewhat of an alliance with Hendrick. We get their engines. We use Valvoline oil. So there was obviously some potential there to do a deal. And, you know, they signed off on it. We were able to make it work with the exact same logos and companies and stuff like that to really knock out of the park. So that's what happens when you got, TJ Pusher, who's owner of Spire. You know, he's got a lot of connections and pulled some favors to make it happen. And I think it was worth it.
And looking at Dover this weekend, steep banking all around, how would you compare Miles the Monster or Dover pretty much in real life in terms of that steep banking?
It's probably one of the most unique places we go to, because the rubber lays down really heavy and the track gets really wide depending on what, what tire and downforce package we have. Obviously, we have the low downforce package. So we're going to get up the racetrack quite a bit, searching for grip, trying to get a better run down the hill, put power down the straightaways. I've had some success there in a K&N car years past, ran well there in Xfinity cars. So I always have confidence going to the Monster Mile, but that's a place, man, where it's really car dependent. Your car has to get over the bumps. Your shocks have to be dialed in, and you have to have a lot of downforce. You have to have a lot of motors. So it's probably more heavier dependent car tracks that we go to on the circuit. And if you're off a little bit compared to those leaders, you're in the way. So this is the most excited I've been in my career going to Dover in a Cup car, just because I know what we continue to build to our cars. We're getting more downforce. We have good engines this year as well. So, judging by our performance last week at Darlington, I thought we were, like I said, a 22nd place car. And if we can run there, then we can run 20th. And when we start running there, we can run, on the back end of the top 15. And that's kind of the trajectory that we're trying to put ourselves on.
Thank you, Corey. Good luck this weekend.
Thanks.
Our next question is going to come from Cole Cusimano. Go ahead with the question, Cole.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you for your time today, Corey. Over these last 4 weeks, you've kind of been stacking pennies in a way, it seems. Is there anything that's been clicking for you and your 7 team as of late?
We don't do anything that's the thing, man. Like, you just try to stick to what you know and control the things you can control, whether it be your preparation, my fitness, my attitude, the things the Sparks can control, how the cars are built, the setups that are in it, the relationships that he has with Ganassi to continue to build those, and the results are circumstantial a lot of the times, whether you have parts break or, whatever. There's a million different ways that can change your outcome of the race. So, everybody wants to talk about momentum, this or that, but I think that it comes with just a confidence. When you are confident in each other around you, you're confident with your simulation. What you're plugging in is applicable to what comes out and what you put on the racetrack, especially with no practice. So I think a little bit of that's confidence in what we're doing and where we're going and how we're doing it. And then that's what kind of builds momentum. And, I don't think that we have an abundance of momentum at the moment, but I think if we just keep doing what we're doing, like I said, we ran really good at Martinsville. We've had some strong runs. We've had some piss poor runs, but We've had a lot better runs as of late as we continue to learn these cars, and I'm excited to see the back end of the year when we can apply the notes from the first half to the second half and see if we can't get better every week.
Thank you, sir. Good luck this weekend.
Thanks.
Our next question will come from Ashley McCubbin. Go ahead with your question, Ashley.
Hey, Corey, thanks for your time today. What has surprised you most this season as we come up in the halfway point of the regular season?
How many winners there've been? I think we talk about that every week on my podcast. It's granted we got Martin Truex winning 3, but beyond that, everybody's only won 1. And the fact that we haven't seen Kevin Harvick or Denny Hamlin first dominate as he's been find victory lane is a little bit surprising for me. I think that competitively, this is probably one of the most competitive seasons in NASCAR of all time. So I'm excited to see how that boils down to by the end of the chase or by the end of the regular season, because having Daytona, there's a couple different factors into that, right? Because like all the teams have a couple extra Speedway cars left, and there's only 2 more Speedway races left, and 1 can punch your ticket into the playoffs potentially. So I think everybody's going to be tightening the belts up and putting it in there, trying to contend for a win there at Daytona. And then that fall race in Talladega will be just tighten the belts and throw caution to the wind and bring home the steering wheel. So there's a lot of stuff to be looking forward to if you're a race fan as we continue to see the numbers on TV grow or stay consistent. Those are really optimistic numbers to see. And I do think there's still room to grow. I think there's a lot of things to be excited about as a competitor in the sport as well as a fan of the sport right now.
Last time at Dover, you scored your best finish there at that track with a 23rd place finish. What is it going to take to continue improving your finishes there as you move forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think we should, I think right now our goals or expectations here at Spire are we should run 23rd every week, give or take some issues. But I feel like that's where we kind of stack up. Maybe there might be a couple of guys with, a little faster cars or bigger budgets behind us or in front of us every week. But we know the guys that we should be racing around and guys that we should out execute. And I think that going to the 750 package puts a little bit more in the driver's hands as opposed to the 550 package where the cars are glued and you don't have much control with throttle management and stuff like that. You don't have to manage your tires. So I love slipping, sliding around because that allows me to get, an extra 2 or 3 spots that I probably wouldn't get if there was the higher downforce package. But, I think that, like I mentioned earlier, we're going to control, we can control. And some days you run 28, some days you run 18, some days you run 6. And we'll just take it as it comes and see where we end up.
Thanks for your time today.
Thank you.
Our final question will come from Tucker White. Go ahead with the question, Tucker.
All right. Corey, a big topic of conversation with IndyCar's recent trip to Texas was the use of PJ1 there. Graham Rahal himself said that it was like walking on ice when racing on it. How does that compare to your experience with it, with all the years they've been using it at Texas?
So that's a really long I can give you a long-winded answer because I've pounded myself in the fence that one year where there was like 8 cars that wrecked in the PJ1. I was one of those guys who augured my stuff in the fence. PJ1's activated by a couple different things: the amount of cars that are running on it and the weight of the car and how hot your tires are. So the Indy cars don't make enough heat in their tires to activate the PJ1. And there's also those things make so much grip without the PJ1. Anytime you go up into the stuff, it's not activated and your tires aren't hot enough to get up there and activate the solution or whatever it is. So Indy cars, I wouldn't imagine they put any more down for the Indy cars. They probably want to be taking that stuff off because it's a very fine window of what activates the stuff and what doesn't activate the stuff. They tried to put it down really heavy that year. We saw Stenhouse and Keselowski and myself, and there's like 6 or 7 guys. You get up there and you get a half a tire on the stuff that's not activated yet. It goes from Velcro to slime like that. And there's no recovering. So when you put an Indy car on those, and those things are on the razor edge of grip, they don't have the side force. They don't have the yaw moment that our cars can get out to, and they don't have the tire heat that can activate that stuff. So it's probably a little bit dangerous for those guys to race on tracks with PJ1 that's applied for a cup race, because it's not made for Indy cars. So but those guys are also going a hell of a lot faster, and they got a lot bigger balls than I got, because I would not be out there on Texas running 230 miles an hour.
All right, thank you.
Good deal. Well, Corey, thank you again for taking the time to join us. Good luck at Dover, and keep on the good work with the Stacking Pennies podcast.
I appreciate that. You have a good one.
Yep. Take care now.